Let's bring in ABC's John Carl, who's also traveling with the president. John, good morning. Considering the type of rhetoric we heard from then candidate Trump during the campaign, are you surprised by the warm welcome he's receiving as he arrives there in the heart of the Muslim world?
Well, it is something else to see him welcomed in the Muslim world the way he has been by Islamic leaders from all around the world, not just Saudi Arabia. It's surprising that the president chose the birthplace of Islam to be the place that he would visit the very first foreign country as president. But in a sense, it's not surprising. If you look at what the Saudis are, their relations to the United States, they were very upset with the Obama administration, especially for Obama's what they saw as brace of Iran, the Iran nuclear deal. And they see Donald Trump as somebody who's going to be much tougher on their enemy, the nation of Iran, and also somebody who won't lecture them on human rights. So they actually, despite all that anti-Islamic rhetoric we heard from Trump during the campaign, they actually welcome his policies as president.
And the next stop for Trump, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that the citizens of Israel will receive Trump with open arms. So what are the prospects for restarting the peace talks when he travels to Israel?
Well, it's a very, very steep climb, but he is going to be meeting with the leaders, with the Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas as well. And the way the administration sees this is this moment in the Arab world, with the Arab world, so much of the Arab world united against the threat of Iran. What the White House hopes, what the president's foreign policy advisors hope, is that this will mean more support for the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks from the Arabs, because now Israel is not the common enemy, it's Iran. So they hope that that can be used as a way to restart these peace talks, but obviously it is a very steep climb.
All right, John Carl, thank you. Safe travels to you as well. And we want to bring in our chief anchor, George Stephanopoulos, who will be hosting this week later this morning. George,
good morning guys.
To you. So we know you have a big interview with the president's national security advisor, General H.R. McMaster. We have a clip where you ask him about the reports of what the president said to top Russian officials in the Oval Office the day after he fired James Comey. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, the president of the United States telling the Russian foreign minister in their first meeting that the pressure is off because he's fired the FBI director investigating Russian interference in the campaign. Does that seem appropriate to you?
As you know, it's very difficult to take a few lines, to take a paragraph out of what appear to be notes of that meeting. The intent of that conversation was to say, what I'd like to do is move beyond all of the Russia news so that we can find areas of cooperation.
It looks to be a great interview, George, but the president, as you know, is traveling with some of his closest advisors right now. But according to reports, one of these officials may now be a person of interest in the FBI investigation. Do you expect this to be a cloud over his trip?
Well, coming off this week, this was probably the most battering week of the Trump presidency. You had that headline that the president given away classified information to the Russians. You had that headline that in that same meeting with the Russians, remember, that was 24 hours after the president fired James Comey. He called James Comey a nut job and said the pressure is off because he's no longer investigating. You had these other reports that James Comey felt that the president was trying to get him to drop the investigation. So this was a tough week. The White House hoping that this is going to be a break. And you have to say that so far, at least they're getting a bit of a break overseas. A very warm welcome in Saudi Arabia. So far, the trip is going along with no hitches at all. We're going to get that big speech from the president as well. So, you know, this is really something that they're hoping will calm everything down before they come back home.
And you mentioned the speech. This is really the centerpiece of the day, the president delivering a speech about fighting terrorism to many dozens of Arab leaders. As you look at what the president's saying, what do you take away?
Well, most remarkable, the break from the campaign. Remember, all during the campaign, the president talked about radical Islamic terror. The president said flatly, Islam hates us. This is very different. The president's saying this is not a war between religions. Even more significant, perhaps, according to White House aides, is what we're going to hear from the Saudis as well. The Saudi king calling out these terrorists, these extremists, saying that is not Islam. That is something the White House sees as a major benefit of this trip. And if the Saudis stick to it, we know they've been the major funders and backers of Islamic extremists in the past, but if they stick to this commitment right now, that would be a significant achievement.
You talked about that warm welcome from the Saudis. It's gone off without a hitch, but they are treating Trump like royalty. Do you think this could be seen as an early foreign policy victory for Trump and also a rejection of Obama's foreign policy?
Well, clearly the Saudis did not like President Obama at all, and the White House trying to capitalize on that as well. And the president does appear to have a warm relationship. So much will depend on whether this can lead to long-term benefits, lead to Saudi Arabia really taking on Islamic extremism. He heads to Israel next. Will the president's hope for progress in the Middle East peace actually come forward? We're not going to know for a while. This first day, decent start.
Yeah, big day for the president, a big day for you, George. Thank you so much. And a reminder, George has a big show this morning. He's going to have the rest of his one-on-one with White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, plus House Oversight Committee Chairman Jason Chaffetz and Ranking Member Congressman Elijah Cummings. They discuss the latest on the Russia investigation and the appointing of a special counsel that is coming up later this morning, this week, right here on ABC. Thanks again, George.